Were you, like me, brought up by what I call the just get on with it generation? And by that, I mean those parents who wanted to do their best but were completely emotionally unavailable. And do you find that this is influencing you today? If so, you're in the right place. My name is Katrina Horn, and I'm a life coach. I was born in Denmark, and the reason I say that is I only had one idea, and that was how can I get out of here? And there's nothing wrong with Denmark. It's a wonderful place. People are kind and lovely, down by my family, my surroundings, like my whole environment. I felt that to be really, really heavy. And I believed, as I was young, that the only way of escaping my conditioning was to distance myself from where I was born and where I was brought up. So maybe some of that is happening for you. I don't suggest that you move countries or change continents or anything like that, because that's really not what it's all about. We can do this differently. But what I'm trying to say here is please be aware that you have been conditioned, and that conditioning could be what is keeping you stuck today. So, welcome to Becoming Unstuck, Emotional Freedom and the Power of Wanting More. I'm thrilled that you're here. If you're here live, feel free to use the chat to comment or ask questions. I won't be focusing all the time on the chat because I need to concentrate sometimes on what I want to share with you. But I will be reading it and encouraging you to use it if that is something that speaks to you. So welcome to everybody who's here. So great to have you here. I wanted to talk to you about this idea that we are conditioned because many of my clients come to me and they think there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with us. We might have been born into a place that didn't exactly suit us. And that was my case. I spent so much time of my life trying to fit in and trying to change myself. I thought I had to transform myself into being like other people. Like I was so upset with myself when I didn't like what other people liked. And I made myself wrong for liking what I like. And even to this day, I love beauty. I love art. I love nature. I love deep conversations. And that's really what I want to make my life about. And I was wondering, have you thought about really what it is you want to make your life about? Maybe you're not aware, maybe you don't know right now, but I strongly encourage you to really dive deep and think about, well, what do I want life to be about, really? If I could just decide, what would I choose? So that would be an excellent place for us to start. Well, what would you choose? If you're here live, feel free to share it in the chat. I would love to know. Just jot something down for a little bit of inspiration. What would you like your life to be about? Really? Once we start feeling into that, the problem is that we have got so many voices coming up, letting us know that we can't have or be what it is we want to have, be, or do, right? We we are so prone to listen to that voice, and that is our conditioning. It really is. So this conditioning, we can call it our ego mind or our ego self. And what we are not so used to listening to is our higher self, because our higher self is completely on board with us enjoying anything we want, like the best of everything. It's perfectly on board with us loving luxury, wanting more beauty, living the best life, having plenty of friends, a gorgeous house, everything you can think of. Our higher self just finds that really normal. So imagine, oh, let me just check the chat before I go on. Lovely, Doug. Yes, so good. So that's what your life is about, helping others connect to their heart and follow a path of love. Beautiful. I want to invite you also to think about, and this might stretch your imagination, if you had been born into a family of fully supportive parents, of parents who were emotionally regulated and modeled sort of emotional well-being to you. If you had been born into a family where going to an Ivy League college was just like normal, if money was not like a struggle, but just a commodity, if it wasn't a problem to have desires and wants, and that everything was just readily available, then what would be different today, do you think? What would you be thinking differently, and how would you be feeling differently? Do you know? I think that's really interesting to think about, because that is when we bring up all those voices that tell us, oh, you can't have that, you can't do that, or you're not good enough for that, and we can just bring it up into our awareness. Less fear and more action would happen. Okay, so good, because this is what we're going to talk about. Exactly. So if you were brought up like me by parents who were very, very dedicated and dutiful to bringing us up and shaping us into the responsible adults that they wanted us to be, me and my sister, with this idea that if there's food on the table and a roof over your head, that's really enough. So you couldn't just have other desires. You couldn't just say, oh, I would really fancy a new summer dress. That was just not like feasible. That was just not something you could do. Like, it wasn't on the agenda just to say, do you know what, mum and dad, I'm really struggling with some feelings of anger. Like, that would have been unthinkable in my family. Like, just not a possibility. Do you see what I mean? And for you, it could have been something else, totally. But I'm just inviting you to think about, oh, right. Oh, so that's conditioning. It's not actually in me, it's outside of me. It's not part of me. So Claire is saying only do things that bring joy rather than need to do things. Yes, we're going to touch on that too, Claire. So good to bring it up. So if you're with me on that, you're sort of feeling into, well, if I could actually be less determined by my conditioning, what would be possible then? So I used to think that there was something terribly wrong with myself. Like, I had to enjoy the things that other people enjoyed, right? I had to conform, make myself different. So what I've really discovered as growing older and working on being a life coach and learning a lot more about feelings is that if it's really okay that I feel all of my feelings, that is in total contradiction with what I was brought up believing. I was brought up believing that you have to escape your feelings, right? That you have to stuff them down or ignore them. But if it's actually okay to feel them, then what? Like, if you could actually feel the anger and not have it be a problem. So let me share with you my 4 stages. I identified 4 stages to becoming unstuck. So let's dive in, and feel free to comment in the chat. So stage 1 of stuffing down your emotions is when of being stuck, is when you stuff down your emotions. You believe that what goes on in your mind, what you're thinking, that is fact, and that you take your desires to be fantasy. That is stage 1. And if you can sort of feel into it, it's very, very limiting, because you're sort of a victim here, aren't you? You're a victim to your thoughts. You take what your ego mind thinks, you take that to be fact, and that is really, really limiting. So in this stage, you're thinking that you should be grateful, but you can't, because you're profoundly dissatisfied, and you know that this is a problem because it's being ungrateful, right? coming back to that idea of if there's food on the table and a roof over your head, you're good to go. So stage one is where you've got this friction where you're thinking, I should be grateful, but I'm not. So that creates conflict. And I was talking about the anger piece, because I think growing up, young people, there's so much to be angry about, and we feel a lot of angry. But in many, many families, this anger is just unacceptable. But what if you could actually feel that anger, or you can say sadness or frustration, irritation, one of those disagreeable feelings? What if you can just feel it in your body and not bring it into the safety and comfort of your mind? What if it could just exist in your body, so you're not justifying it, you're not explaining why you're angry, you're not trying to talk yourself out of being angry, you're not making it a problem, is what I call it. Then what? And I think if we could dissociate our feelings with the need for action, like Doug just said, like if I could feel action and trust myself not to take action, feeling the anger, if I could just let the anger be there, well, then there can be no danger, because I can be sitting here feeling really angry and there are zero consequences in my life because I'm not taking that action. I'm just sitting here feeling it. Does that make sense? Let me know. Great. So tapping is good for releasing, yes. Thank you, Doug. Tapping is good for releasing anger and removing tension. Yes, yes, yes. Perfect. Tapping is a wonderful tool. So this is stage number one, which is, I hope, not where you are at. And I hope you're not making yourself wrong for feeling or thinking that it's ungrateful to want more. Stage two is where you're still stuffing down your emotions and you're still believing that everything you think is fact, but big change is happening here, because you're starting to feel your desires. That is huge, because your desires come from your higher self. So if you're starting to feel them, it means that you're not only listening to that limited ego self of yours, that conditioned self, you've also got a connection to your higher self, and you are sometimes listening because you are getting the ideas of your desires. So your problem here is that you're thinking, I so want something. I so want my dream partner. I so want my dream house. I so want to make more money, or have a new wardrobe, have a gorgeous, slim and toned body. There's something I want, but I can't have it. So can you sense the friction you're creating for yourself here? The friction of wanting something and then thinking, I can't have it. So if you can just start to notice that you've got this inspiration from your higher mind, your desires, and then you're being pulled down by that ego self of yours, that conditioned mind. So you're feeling perhaps more of the frustration, the anger, all of those emotions that you don't really want to be feeling, because you're feeling the friction more, the problem more, because you believe you can't have what it is you want. So the more you focus here on your desires, the more you can allow yourself just to spend more time with them without immediately going into your mind that tells you, I can't have this. If you're just okay with staying with those emotions for a while, those desires, and allow them to occupy you more and more, then you could be feeling better more of the time. So it doesn't get you quite unstuck yet, but at least you're connected to your higher mind. You are perhaps open at some times to look at, actually, my life could be much more the things I want it to be about. For me, it could be much more about my desire for beauty, my love of luxury, deep conversations, art, nature. Perhaps for you, that's a new body. It's that gorgeous body you're after, or your dream house or lover. Maybe it's more success in your business, more career success, a promotion. Maybe it's just a new life, a whole new life. Whatever it is, at least you're listening. So that is a huge progress. So I'm just reading the comments from Doug. Emotions are energy in motion. They need to move. Okay. Okay, let's move on to number 3. In stage number 3, you're still stuffing down your emotions, but you are starting to question your thoughts, meaning you are no longer taking your ego mind thoughts to be facts. So if you've been telling yourself that I can't have this because I'm not intelligent enough, or I'm not hardworking enough, I'm not beautiful enough, or whatever it is you've been telling yourself, at least you're starting to question this. And this is precious. You're no longer believing everything your mind is telling you. You're onto it. And you keep feeling your desires intensely. This is stage 3. So the problem here is that you compensate your feelings with action. So you're still having those negative emotions that feel so unsafe. You don't want to go there. You are not spending all of your time in belief, meaning that your higher self, who's talking to you about your desires and your worthiness, you think, well, I have to take responsibility of this and I have to make it happen. So this is where you take so much action to compensate for your lack of belief in yourself and your worthiness. You want to action your way to your desires. And that is so exhausting, because how can you? How can you when you've still got your emotions and your beliefs blocking you? So this is where you can have some success. You can have, you can make a few steps of progress. Let's say you have got yourself onto a job interview, but then when you get to the interview to get a better position, then you self-sabotage up and you're set back a step. And then you apply again. And this is where you say, oh, I must be revising my resume. I must be sending it out to 100 people per day. I must be actioning my way to my dream, to my desires. And that can cause, well, it can create a little bit of success, but it's a lot of strife and it's a lot of struggle. It's a lot of actioning, and it's a lot of what I call efforting. And that doesn't feel particularly good. And there is no sort of sense of trust and ease, because it's about making it happen. So have you got any comments on that? I find that this is where most of my clients are at. They're sort of pulled down by the sense that, oh, there's so much work to be done. I must go out into the world and do all of this so that I can enjoy X, Y, Z. Is that something that resonates with you? I'd love to know. So while you're thinking about that, let me just sort of underscore that at this stage you are focused on performance, you're striving, and you're doing more, more, more. So maybe you're thinking, oh, if I just do this more, if I do this better, if I get hold of that one piece of missing information, then I'll be good. Like, there's always something you have to do. So what have we got in the chat? You've overcome that. Brilliant. So good. So There's one advantage here, and that is that you're taking responsibility, but I don't think you're taking responsibility of quite the right thing because you've taken responsibility for your actions, and that is your point of control. You feel in control because you are taking action and you're not yet empowered really to think on purpose. You're not able to shift your beliefs into something supportive. So that the struggle is between you're actioning your way to what it is you want, and you're being pulled down by unhelpful thoughts that you're still sometimes believing. And then you get upset with yourself for believing them, and you get upset with the thoughts, and you want to chase them away, and all of that. So that is really not helpful. I was just talking to a lady who said, well, how do I stop comfort eating? Um, because this is also the stage where you start to compensate, right? Because you're frustrated because you're still stuffing down your emotions. So you've got the frustration, you've taken the action, you're not seeing the results you want. So you try to numb out with food or alcohol, Netflix, shopping, working, exercising, whatever it is. We've all got a go-to sort of numbing out technique that feels really much better for us than feeling our emotions. So I had a lady ask me, well, how do I stop this emotional eating, comfort eating? And well, you could focus on the surface and observe, oh, I eat for comfort. But that is on the surface because if you really want to change that behavior deep down, you have to go inside, like deeper inside yourself and find out, well, what are the thoughts and feelings that are motivating that behavior? What am I really thinking? What are my ego thoughts here? What is my conditioning make me focus on here that makes me believe I have to comfort anything? I have to comfort myself. So once you go down on that deeper level, and that is what we do in life coaching, it's we address the deeper reasons why you're behaving in a certain way. And behaving, I mean, comfort eating, I call that a behavior. And so that behavior is causing you problems in your life. So you want to stop the behavior, but you are unaware of what is driving the behavior. And what I'm saying is, let's go down into what is driving that behavior. And that is much more effective than staying on the surface. Like if you are under earning, let's say at your work, you're under earning and you're thinking, oh, how can I make more money? Well, that is again a surface level problem because, well, what is driving the under earning? What is that? And you can only solve really the whole problem and not just the behavior if you go below it. Hope that makes sense. So yes, you are in stage 3. Yes, I know that stage so well. So yes, in my head, I understand the trust, but I do actions. Yes, it's in the mind. So good. It really is in the mind, and we have to work with the mind and the emotions, as will become obvious later on. So I get it. We stay in our minds. We stay in our minds because that is where we have control. I can't quite control my body. I can't control the hormones that create happiness or despondency or anger or sadness. I can't control the emotions. What I can control is when I go into my mind and I start explaining and I start justifying, then I feel more in control. So that's why we go into our minds. That is a comfort that we can find sometimes in the thinking. And if the thinking is to problem solve, then perfect. But when it is to assuage our doubts or sort of lull ourselves into false beliefs, or when it is to become upset with ourselves or the world, then that's really not useful. So when we go into our thinking, we have to be mindful of exactly why we are thinking. What is the purpose of our thinking? What exactly is the purpose? So good to create this awareness. So Wendy says, used to be in that boat, yeah, where I went to all summits and things, so I would not miss out. That's over. Community and buddy system is important, yes. When I go there, I just go for a walk in nature and be present and call someone. Okay. You have a list to shift your thoughts when you want to comfort eat. Yes. Right. So the next step I would say is to feel your feelings. Try that out, right? Try that out. So thoughts, it's useful to work on your thoughts, definitely. Change your thoughts. Have a good system in place to change your thoughts. With my clients, we do thought ladders. So we work ourselves into a different belief where we are not denying the ego self and those limiting thoughts, but we are transforming them. Let's move on to, unless you've got other comments, let's move on to stage 4. This is where you start opening up to your emotions and you don't find fault with them. This is why with my clients, we start with this self-love. And if you've been following me for any time, you know that I start with self-love. Self-love is the most important piece, really. Because if you don't love yourself unconditionally, if you find fault with your negative thoughts, well, then you are rejecting whole parts of yourself. And whatever you do from rejection will never feel good and will never get you to where it is you want to be. So opening up to your emotions, accepting all of them, knowing how you can change your thoughts, meaning not repressing your unhelpful thoughts, but changing them. And when you believe in your desires and your own worthiness, you're thinking, I can have more, and I am not my thoughts. What I'm thinking is not fact, and I'm separate from my thoughts. It's this idea that we've got a higher self and our ego self. There's space for all of it in ourselves. We don't have to reject our ego self. We have to accept it, and we have to nurture our connection to our higher self. And that higher self is where our desires are born. It's that part of us who know that we can do and be and have what we want. It's that part of us who know that we are forever worthy, and there's nothing we can do to be undeserving. And so when you are in stage 4, you are becoming unstuck because you're focused on who you are, on your being, and you are allowing for more. So you're sort of opening yourself up to so much more. Am I making sense here? Great, Wendy. Lovely. So let me just look at my notes. Great. I've got a yes from everybody. So you're with me here. Have you got any questions on that or the stages before I move on? Any questions? Put them in the chat. If you're watching the replay, you can, of course, also put your questions to me, either in the comment box below or by sending me an email. Right? I'm always very happy to have your questions, and I shall try to answer them to the best of my ability. So we can move ourselves through those stages. And often what happens is that we sort of dive in and out of a few stages. It's not like a clear-cut thing. So many things can be true at the same time. My dream is to live in a chateau here in France. So I believe that. I know that that is going to happen. I know it. But sometimes I doubt. And that's okay. Because I'm not denying my doubt. I'm saying, oh, wow, that was a thought that has you doubt. Oh, let me look at it with curiosity. Let me not try to stuff it down, or let me not try to deny it's there. let me just accept it in and see, oh, well, what is that really about? What is that telling me about myself? Where is it that I don't feel worthy, that I have such a, a, a sabotaging thought? Where's that coming from? What's that about? I get really curious with it. So if you haven't got any questions, did you identify where you're at? I know that some of you said stage 3. You can be in stage 4 or between stage 3 and 4. You can be between stage 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. Right? There is no right, there is no wrong. The trick here is to recognize where you're at so that you're aware of what you can do to, well, to change it. And I wanted you to notice that we talk about the mind, body, spirit connection. And isn't it fascinating that emotions happen in your body, thoughts happen in your brain, or we can call it mind, and your desires happen in your higher mind or your spirit. Isn't that so interesting? Because these 3 emotions, thoughts, and desires are the tools that will get us to what I call our ideal lives. That is when we are living and we're experiencing what we want our lives to be about. And we have to include all of it. Our thoughts and emotions and desires are the tools that will help us create it. It's not a degree from an Ivy League college, right? It's not a fortune sitting in the bank. That is not what will create our dream life. It's what is within us. Would you agree with that? So anything that is unhelpful, anything that doesn't feel good is coming from your ego. You are so good. Yes, great. And can I just also stress here that emotions, the reason why we don't have to be afraid of them is that they're just information. So let's imagine you're feeling a lot of fear. That is our ego self. So we're feeling a lot of fear. Now, we can get really curious about it and dive into where that is coming from and why we're feeling the fear. But fear will always be there. It's part of your ego self. So in your journey towards becoming unstuck, there will always be fear. It's coming from that ego mind, your conditioning, and you can't make it go away. You can accept it's there. But in stage number 1, you let that fear stop you. There's something you don't want to do because it's fearful, it's scary. So you stop yourself. In stage 2, you try to control it. So you're sort of wrestling with it, you're stuffing it down, you're in conflict with the fear. And that is, of course, hindering you. In stage 3, you take the action while you feel the fear, and that is really what can lead you to self-sabotage. And I gave you the example of going for a job interview and not believing that you can get the job, not believing you're qualified enough, not believing you're good enough, deserving, whatever it is, not believing that you could make that much money, something like that. And then you self-sabotage. That is in stage 3. And in stage 4, you start focusing on the love instead of the fear. And this is what it could look like. So when you look at action from the lens of love, you could be telling yourself that, well, I can give an example from my life. In my quest for normalcy, in my desire for being normal, I thought, oh, let's get you, Katrina, a normal job, because I used to be a musician and that wasn't normal. Like, I was too strange. I felt that I wasn't enough like other people. So I said, oh, let me become a teacher. That way I can shape myself into being a normal person with a normal job. And what happened here is that I had to get up in the morning to go to school, right? To be a teacher. I had to get up at a certain time to be somewhere at a certain time. And I felt so resentful for it. And this might make you laugh. It makes me laugh because how ridiculous, right? I really felt resentful, yet I brought it on myself. Like I decided to become a teacher. Nobody forced me to it. But let's just notice that feeling this resentment, well, if I could just have felt it and become curious about it and say, well, what is that about? And instead of denying my resentment or sort of sugarcoating it and saying, oh, yeah, poor Katrina, it's dreadful having to get up so early and having to do all this work and blah, blah, blah. If I could just have gotten curious about it, I could, of course, found out that, well, I wasn't made for that normal job and I didn't have to do it. But where was I going with that? Yeah, coming at it from the idea of love instead of fear. So if I had wanted to shift into love, I could have said, I really want to be a teacher. I love teaching. I love connecting with the kids, which was true. I just didn't like a lot of other things. But then I could have said, oh, I want to get up early so that I get to teach, so that I get to meet the children, so that I get to be the teacher I want to be, always on top of it. That would be coming from love. But you could also be thinking, no, I can't find them. But if you think about, yes, work, for instance, you could say, oh, I want to start my own business, but I resent having to phone up clients or potential clients. I resent talking to them. That doesn't feel good because they might reject me. So that's coming to it from the fear angle. Coming to it from the love angle, it is, I want to phone up people to let them know about my wonderful products. I believe I can make a difference in people's lives with my products. I want to sell them. I want to have my business that will help other people. So it's a mind shift, right? But it's not enough. It's a good start. We really have to focus on this idea that we can come from love. So let me move on. I got myself out of screen sharing like this. So to recap, let's just always remember that you have been conditioned and you're experiencing your conditioning via your ego. So I'm saying that because so many of my clients feel that there's something wrong with them, but there isn't. You are perfect. There's nothing wrong. You were just conditioned into some false beliefs. And when you're willing to look at them as false beliefs, you can perhaps also start thinking about, well, what if what I was led to believe about myself, about my possibilities, about the world, what if that was just a great big misunderstanding? Then what? If I didn't have to limit myself to what was made available to me in my childhood and when I was growing up, what if I believed that that is what was possible for me, but that was just a misunderstanding. And it was just because I was more connected to that ego self and I lost connection to my higher self, or I sometimes lost it, right? It's always there, but I just stopped listening to it. What also we talked about is that the ego will always focus on fear. So that's just your ego. And you can't, well, a few people, I believe, like a few people on this earth have silenced their ego. But I mean, like the rest of us, we've still got it. And if we don't make ourselves wrong about it, it's really okay because we can discern whether a thought is coming from ego or from our higher self. And that reminds me that our feelings are just really there to guide us. When we have got a fearful thought, a fearful thought from our ego self, it's really just telling us that we are misunderstanding something, that we're not seeing the whole truth. Isn't that so good to know? Because then we can get curious about it, as in my example from teaching and how I was feeling resentful for having to get up at a certain time. If I could have taken that resentment just as a sign that I wasn't seeing the truth here, that I was missing something. Well, could you see how less painful it would have been for me? Could you see how immediately that would have brought me out of the suffering? But just know that your ego will always focus on fear, and our emotions are just there to guide us, really, to tell us, oh, here's a fearful thought, here's sadness, here's resentment, here's irritation, here's frustration. Right, there's something I'm misunderstanding. Your higher mind speaks to you through your desires. That's so good to know, isn't it? So the more we dial into our desires, the more we are connected to that higher self. And if you're used to coming to these workshops, I often talk about being at our best. And being at our best is not when we are living up to something. It's not when we are forcing ourselves to perfection or something like that. Our best self is when we are following our desires in belief that we are totally worthy of them, and in belief that we will get there. So please start tuning in to your higher mind and to those more empowering thoughts. Also, can I just say that many things can be true at the same time. So we are so prone to go into the all or nothing thinking, like either I'm overeating or I'm restricting myself to mere survival, right? What is there in between? Either I'm the most beautiful woman in the room or I'm totally ugly. What is there in between? Many things can be true at the same time, meaning that I can be living my dream life in the south of France, in my gorgeous 200-year-old house that I've done up exactly to my taste. That feels so good. And I want more. Both can be true. Nothing has gone wrong. We have got desires. I believe we've got our desires to help us be at our best. Because as I'm moving towards my desire of living in a chateau, I'm pulling out so much more of me. I'm getting to be more of me. I'm living, I say, my life on the edge of what is possible. Like I'm always drawn to more. Do you see what I mean? And maybe that's something for you to think about. Oh, if I'm tending or trending towards my dream, how do I behave differently? What do I start doing? What do I stop doing? That is so interesting just to feel into. And with everything I've shared with you today, please don't think, oh, I have to completely transform myself, like with all these emotions, desires, and thoughts, like it has to happen now. Well, just start really where it feels good to you. Like, oh, where would I want to start? What feels doable? What feels enticing? What feels desirable? Let me start there. And what could be more enticing than listening to your desires, really? What could feel more inspiring? And if you could then let your doubts be there some of the time and not make yourself wrong for it, well, then what could possibly go wrong? Let me know. Let me know. But now we've come to a decision moment for you. I want to invite you to a life audit session. And this is where we go deeper. This is a free session. It's 1 hour's time investment. It is free, and it is where I help you get really clear on your desires. In this session, we go not just on the surface level of what you think you want, we go a little bit deeper. Once we have determined exactly what your deepest desires are, we identify what's getting in your way there. And then we dive into the journey there. I map it out for you so that you've got, well, it's sort of, well, you can call it a blueprint of how to experience your desires, how to bring yourself towards them, how to start moving into your desires. And then we anchor those desires with impact. We make them really important for you so that you get to realize that they are important to you. And so you get to take action on them. And hopefully, what we've been talking about today will help you determine what kind of action, what kind of belief, what kind of thoughts, what kind of feelings you want to be taking action from. Right? So this session is completely free. I would love meeting up with you, and I would love diving into what this looks like for you, because it's one thing sitting through like a workshop like this and getting ideas and being inspired, and it's another thing getting to work on it, like putting your hands on it. So if you're here live, I just put a link to book a life audit session in the chat. Feel free to go ahead and grab yourself one of those. I have opened up spots on Saturday because I'm going away next Wednesday. So I wanted to make a lot of times available to you. Feel free to grab one of those for yourself. If you've got any questions about it, just let me know those questions in the chat. So the point of the life audit session is to create a transformation for you. It's transformative to be put in front of your real desires. Right now, you might think that, oh, I want to make more money, but there's something below that. And then sitting with that blueprint of how to get there, knowing, oh, this is how I can get there. Well, that is really precious, because what doubts come up after that, you can address them. You can address them, of course, with your intellect, but then you can also feel into them, because your blueprint will for sure include some feelings, some emotions. And then when you anchor your desires with impact, when you start realizing, oh, this is what I want in my life, well, am I that important really? And when you realize that you are, and when you realize that being so important, you're willing to do something uncomfortable for yourself. You're willing to believe in yourself. You're willing to, well, I like to, well, it's just for myself. I don't talk to my clients like that. But if I'm willing to take myself seriously, then what? Then what would that look like? And that has really been a big thing for me in my life. I used to be very confused around this being taking myself seriously, and it felt really daunting. And it's just in the past, I don't know how many years, but not a lot, that I've sort of allowed myself to go all in on taking myself seriously, taking my desires seriously, taking my thoughts seriously, taking my emotions seriously. So once you start doing that, watch what happens. And at the end of the life audit session, if you want more support, I can let you know what that would look like if you want to work with me. So it's a free session. It will, in and of itself, help you gain clarity and perhaps spot a few blind spots for you that you're not aware of. And you will leave the session feeling empowered, like, of course I want this, and of course I can have it. Where's the problem? So if you want to go ahead and book yourself one of those, please feel free. If you're watching the replay, there will be a link to this session, either in the email that goes out with the replay. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, there will be a link below this video. So I would really strongly advise you to go deeper. Don't stay at the surface level with, I haven't got enough money, nobody loves me, I'm too fat, or something like that. It's just not worth it. Please go deeper. You've got all the answers inside of you. It's all available for you, right? It's all in there. Everything you need. It's all in there. So yes, you can book a friend, or you can, well, let your friend book it, right? Don't book it for him or her, because, I mean, we want them to be wanting it, right? We don't want to force it down anybody's throat. Like, it's because once you have a session like that, you can't unsee what you've seen. So I remember with my spiritual coach years ago when I discovered, oh, actually, I'm really drawn towards beauty. Beauty is really a big part of my desires. I love beauty. When I'd seen that, I could no longer make myself wrong for it. And it changed so much, because all of a sudden I was able to go sort of all in on beauty. I was able to allow myself a flower garden. I was allowing myself to decorate my house. I wasn't making myself wrong about it all the time. So once you've seen something, you can't unsee it, and it becomes so much more difficult to talk yourself out of your desires once they've been sort of right in your face. So it's not something to be done just like, oh yeah, I'll try that out, because you might learn something really important about yourself, and then you might want to take action on it. And that is when transformation happens, because as I say, almost in every session we have together, information is not transformation. You could have Googled all of the information I've just given you here, couldn't you? You could have asked ChatGPT or AI, right? You could have, I mean, information is plentiful and available. It is, how do I apply it to my life? That is the transformation. So there's nothing more you need. You've got everything you need to start your transformation. You've got all the information. You don't need any more. What you need now is to decide on your next step. And your next step could be to book a life audit session. I would love to meet up with you. I would love to dive deep. I love people. I'm so fascinated by people. It's really giving me a great gift if you agree to come and talk with me, because I learn so much and I get so inspired. I'm so inspired by my clients too, by everything they want to achieve, everything they want to experience. It's really, the more we share the inspiration, the desires, I mean, the more inspired we get, and the more desires we allow ourselves to feel. Of course, you can show anybody the replay. I shall send out the link and you can share it with anybody, really. I mean, it's on YouTube. You can't keep it secret, really, can you? So I would love to know if you've got any questions here for all of you gorgeous people who are here live. I would love to make myself useful in answering some of them. And maybe I could stop the recording so you can get to ask me questions without being on the replay and feeling embarrassed about it. So I shall just go ahead and stop the recording and say thank you to everybody on the replay. I really enjoyed talking to you. Please don't just let this stay information. Please take action. Just one thing. Just one thing. I'd love to help you. You're free to book a life audit session. It would be my pleasure. Take care. Bye for now.